Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear students, ladies and gentlemen, on we go. Today is our second lecture in this course, the Introduction to American Literature. Okay. In today's lecture, we start with the first part of the American literature that we talked about before. Okay, the first part that we talked about before, we said in the first lecture that we are going to divide the study of American literature into 6 parts, and the first is to be the colonial literature, and the first because chronologically speaking, colonial literature comes first in order of time, okay? Because American literature started to be, started in colonies first before it came to be a literature of its own under what is called today the United States. So, what is meant by colonial literature, and what does it mean to say colonial American literature? And in slide number 1, as you see from the title, colonial American literature, and the first sentence of this slide, here we have the definition of what is meant by American literature, and which means, as said here, the type of literature, the type of writing that originally, emerged, started, established in U.S. colonies during, the period of 1607 to the late 1700s, okay? And it was largely influenced, of course, as we said before, influenced by the British writers, by the English literature, and was created to inform people about the colonial life in the beginning, and religious disputes, religious arguments, and religious, problems and questions, and also about some, settlement issues, because, at that time of the history in the States, there were, a lot of settlements, spread all over the country, and the issues related to settlements اللي هم زي ما يسموهم المستعمرات أو المستعمرات, that was, an important issue to discuss, okay? Then besides, many of the characteristics of the colonial literature can be found in different types of writings, like, the poems, journals, letters, narratives, histories, and, teaching materials written by settlers themselves, besides, religious figures and historical icons of the period. Okay, historical icons means historical symbols, historical important people of that period. And some of the most famous literature or literary figures of that period we have here. We find the colonial literature clear, and it includes the writings of Mary Rowlandson, William Bradford, Anne Bradstreet, and John Winthrop. Okay, these are important to be remembered, these names, and of course this page is also important because it gives some of the most important information about, as an introduction, about what is meant by colonial literature, okay, the definition, and then what was it concerned with, how it started, the dates, okay, these are all important. In the next page we have here, as you see from the title, what are the characteristics or the aspects of the American colonial literature, of the colonial American literature. This type of literature has certain characteristics and certain features that makes it different from other, at this period of time, different from other periods. And first of all, that the type of writing or literature at that time was historical, because it recorded a lot of the history of that period of time of the United States, of the American literature. So one of the major characteristics of colonial American literature is its historical aspects, or historical characteristics, which evolved, over the time, developed over the time during the 400 years since its beginning. And great figures, great writers of that, period of time, with historical aspect clear in their writing, contributed to this genre, such as, Smith and William Penn. Then another, aspect is narrative. The writings of that period of time of American literature was also narrative, which means, there was a lot of writing that related to narration, that, let's say, if we say narrative, from the type of writing you can tell what narrative means. In narrative we mean, writing, journals, letters, diaries, or what things related to memories, writing down memories, and with some other, like also biographies, letters. So that made this period, this period of American literature narrative. Okay, it is characterized by being narrative, which was used extensively during this period. The narrative characteristic was very much notable in that period of time. Okay, most of the literary works of this genre are composed of. This is what makes it narrative. Most of the works of the literary works of this genre, of this type of literature, most of these works are composed of letters, journals, biographies, and memories or memoirs, اللي هو diary writing, or things related to our writings that are related to memories, writing down memories. An example is of famous writers of this period of writing, اللي هو narrative writers. في عندنا اللي هو ايش ماري رولانسون as a narrative account in her sovereignty and goodness of God, being a narrative of the captivity of restoration of Mrs. Mary Rowlandson. Okay, this narrative gives an insider's account, because this is an example of an account, of a narrative account, a narrative tale, or sort of story that, Mary Rowlandson herself, tells about her own experience being in captive by the Native Americans that are called, Red Indians. Okay, Native Americans, the people who were originally living in the United States or in America before, the settlers, came from Europe and other parts of the world. And the heavy hostility in her story, or in her account, she tells tells us about the heavy hostility between the Native Americans and the colonists. Okay, Roland's story is categorized as an autobiography and a captivity narrative. Another aspect, in the next slide, we have religion and poetry. Okay, much of the poetry was, written by the Puritans. Okay, from the Puritan writings, and the Puritan, as this is a religious group that they consider the people of this group, they consider themselves that they are, the leaders, or they claim to be leaders, and they want to lead the people and the whole world, towards, the right way of worshipping God. Okay, And religion is also another characteristics of colonial American literature, and can be found mostly in Puritan writings. Okay, the writings of these Puritan people, of Puritan group. They wrote about, the Puritans wrote about the religious foundations of many of their settlements, especially the exodus from Britain, اللي هو immigration or escaping from Britain, and employed the constant theme that God should be worshipped. Okay. They also used texts that prepared them for worship. This literature helped spread the message of God, suggesting that life was a test, and the soul would face damnation, punishment, if that test was failed. So they wanted, through their poetry, to help people to be saved from damnation and from punishment by, telling them and teaching them how to worship God, and how to be pure, and how to be good people and good worshippers. Ambition and hard work were continuously stressed. Okay, many of the Puritan works were written in poetry form. Okay, and Bradstreet's poetry, the Bay Psalm book, okay, and Pastor Edward Taylor's preparatory meditations are good examples of religious texts of the era. These are also examples to be remembered as, as examples of the colonial American literature, period. Okay, non-Puritan writers also used religion to show, even in that period there were also non-Puritan writers. They also used religious or religion or religious issues or religion to show that the religious tension between the colonial settlers and Native Americans. Okay, then we come to a last issue and last aspect, اللي هو the enlightenment, the awareness, okay, the change in knowledge, and being aware of a lot of new things found, our beginning of finding a lot of new things, in that period of time, new discoveries, in all sides of life, in socially speaking, scientifically speaking, geographically speaking, and politically speaking, in the 18th century, the Enlightenment showed, okay, and Enlightenment as a movement. Okay, remember, okay, the Enlightenment as a movement, showed a great shift in colonial literature. From religious foundation, so from a religious foundation to scientific reasoning applied to human nature, society, culture, and political awareness. Okay, that was also to be considered as a great shift in the 18th century. Okay, the Enlightenment movement to challenge, the religious foundation, okay, and move people from being very much attached and geared towards religion, and judging on things through religion, to what, towards scientific reasoning, and applying scientific reasoning to human nature, to human society, to human culture, and political, okay, awareness. Many texts, written as examples, many texts, during this period of time, the 18th century, showing or reflecting the writing of the Enlightenment movement, were written in pamphlet or narrative form, and challenged the role of God and religious life. Okay, this is the role of, okay, the Enlightenment movement. Okay. Challenging the role of God and life, the role of life through the religious people, just not having, everything judged by religion and through, religious people. Seeking these texts, you know, the Enlightenment texts, seeking to replace them with reason. Okay, اللي هو replacing, you know, the role of religious people and religious life, and, you know, role of, you know, religious life and role of God to be replaced by what? By reason, by يعني using the reason. Okay, اللي هو using logic in judging on things, not only or maybe here not at all using religious, you know, judgments and, you know, judge on things through religion only. No, here these people, you know, اللي هو the people of the Enlightenment movement, they depend on reason, on, you know, judging things through reasoning, through rationale, through logic, justification, through logic, you know, explanation. Okay, not just, you know, through, you know, religious people or religion. Rational thought and science were the new themes. These are the new themes of this period of time اللي هو through the Enlightenment movement. This is their theme, this is their message, this is their role. Okay, اللي هو ايش؟ rational thought and science. Okay, judging on things, carrying, you know, out, you know, missions of the social, political, cultural life through rational thought and science. Okay, and of course these themes were new at that time, and from that time, you know, they started, you know, these themes started to be used. The autobiography, okay, this is important, the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, as an example of the Enlightenment movement, and the pamphlet Common Sense by Thomas Paine explored many of these new ideas. These are important examples to be remembered, please. Okay, اللي هو autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Okay, autobiography اللي هو Benjamin Franklin wrote about himself, about his own life, his own personal life, and then the pamphlet of Thomas Paine اللي هو that is called Common Sense. Okay, are examples of the new ideas, you know, that, you know, new ideas that reflect the ideas and the thoughts, okay, of the Enlightenment, of the people of the Enlightenment movement. There are other texts, you know, and writings, you know, similar texts, also led by the way to more awareness of social, economic, and scientific issues. The American Revolution had a large part to play in the shifting of ideas. Okay, today's lecture is not that long, so simply speaking, we talk here about, we have already talked about, you know, the colonial American literature, how it started, when it started, and, you know, what was it influenced by, and names of the most important literary figures of this period. And then the second major, you know, issue or part of this lecture اللي هو talk about the aspects, the characteristics of this part of the American literature, and these aspects are four. اللي هو first of all, it's being historical, being two, being narrative, three, being religious, and, you know, concerned with religion and poetry, and then last we talk about the Enlightenment movement. Okay, the Enlightenment movement, movement in the 18th century, and with some more, let's say, the most important figures of this period of time. Okay, and remember that we have examples of two examples that should be remembered اللي هم اللي هو Benjamin Franklin and as one of the most important figures of the American literature, and then we have Thomas Paine. Okay, that's all for today, and we call it a class. Okay, it's short, but it's full of information, and see you soon in our third lecture. Thank you very much, and see you again. Assalamu alaikum.